Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Axel and Friends podcast. My name is Axel Blaze, back for another fantastic episode with another fantastic guest. And in today's episode of the podcast, going back to more of a general theme with this video today, um, we're going to be talking about the generational divide when it comes to anime and manga fans. Because when it comes down to it, depending on if you are a 2000s baby, a 90s baby, an 80s baby, or earlier, you grew up with very different access to anime and manga and various things. And we kind of want to break that down today. So, with me for the first time on the podcast as well as on the channel, wanted to invite someone similar to myself, that is of the same age range and, the same appreciation and whatnot of what's come before. We've got for today's podcast world champion Whawkins. Whawkins, welcome to the podcast.
How's it going, everybody? It's your world champion here with Axel to talk about us old folks, those young kids that won't get off our anime lawns, and just all the divide and some of the, coming together that anime can bring us. Yeah, I've been looking forward to being on the podcast, and I'm glad we have a good topic to talk about. And with people that are similar in age and when we're online talking with other people about anime and manga today.
I wasn't gonna call us old, but you just put it right on out there for people. But
Well,
I mean, it's true. It is
look,
compared to.
I just got my medication, and we had tapioca pudding
Oh
for
my
dinner
god!
tonight, so
Please, no. Oh my god. I mean, I know you're lying because we talked about it pre-podcast, but still, oh
yeah.
no, no, we're not there yet, dear God. Um,
Oh, yeah.
but no, like, and I wanted, especially because we are of a similar age and whatnot, and yes, I mean, by having somebody younger on the podcast, it would have given another perspective on it as well. But like, it's nice to have somebody else here that can appreciate seeing the changes over time and being familiar with those changes. Because I mean, that being said, like, as cool as it would be to kind of like just blow like a young person's mind and be like, hey, did you know that this came out before you were born? Like, it works to an extent, but at a certain point it's just like, all right, well, okay. you, you
Yeah.
you don't know, you don't really know, so you can't appreciate this for what it is. Not saying that
Yeah.
everybody can't, but like, so I'm glad
You
that
weren't
you're.
around in my day or
Exactly.
when this came
Get
out.
off my anime lawn, like you
Yeah.
said. But yeah, so throughout the podcast and whatnot, we're gonna be talking and honestly going down memory lane to an extent here, and just kind of showing, you know, where things kind of land on a timeline of like what came out in the 2000s, what came out in the 90s, what happened before the 90s. I know that's a crazy thought, like, dear God.
Yeah.
And then just kind of talk about some of the changes and whatnot that we've seen over time, um and like how how that's affected, like, the AniTube, anime, manga, Twitter space. I mean, the stuff before YouTube and Twitter, for that matter, because yeah, there were interesting things before that
Yeah.
time period. But yeah, um, I think a great way to kind of kick things off is to honestly talk about the 90s and how we kind of grew up with it. Um,
Yeah.
no, I'm gonna, and I should have mentioned this before. We're gonna be talking about this from a United States perspective on things. Um, at least Whawkins, you're from the United States too, right? I know. No,
Yes,
okay.
I believe I am. You
I,
know.
again, and that's the thing. I was just like, oh man, am I inviting somebody on this podcast that's not from the States that doesn't have the same experience? No, okay,
No.
we're good. We're good.
Yeah, yeah,
This is what I get for not vetting guests. No, I'm kidding. But
yeah. This is what you get for not researching
oh,
beforehand.
jeez, I know it's awful. Oh my
Oh,
god. But um, I'm gonna make the assumption that you had a very similar kind of '90s upbringing in terms of, the content and whatnot that you viewed in terms of like the anime space as well as like the manga space.
yeah, I mean, in the anime space, it was always uh, Dragon Ball Z and Tenchi Muyo on Toonami. What other names can I name drop? Big O. Well, Big O was mainly in the 2000s, I think. So scratch that one. Um, things like that, growing up with, and I'm even gonna lump Pokemon in there because most people don't want to lump Pokemon for some reason into the anime talk of the 90s, but that was a big thing because Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z were probably two of the biggest series to really bring about like that anime and manga culture especially in America. And I even remember getting my first manga I ever got was the Pokemon manga with I forgot what it was actually called, but it was the one that was heavily censored
Mm-hmm.
for the United States, where they changed like Misty's outfit for one thing. There was like a chapter or something about how a Haunter was killing people and Sabrina had to save everybody or something. Like I had a couple manga volumes of those growing up too, but so that I guess is where my start came from in the 90s. And I'll never forget, to this day, I'll never forget this. So when I started watching DBZ on Toonami, it was part of the Boo saga. Like I think they had started airing DBZ with the Otherworld tournament for some reason. Um, and they went all the way to Vegeta's sacrifice against Boo. And so I watched that episode. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so hyped for tomorrow. Can't wait. I can't wait for tomorrow. So the next day, all day, I'm just waiting to get home to watch Dragon Ball Z. I'm just like, oh, I can't wait to see, did Vegeta succeed? Did he win? And then I get home and I turn on the TV. I'm like, all right, Dragon Ball Z time. And they had started all the way back to episode one of
Oh
Dragon Ball Z. And I'm
no.
sitting there like,
Oh.
what? What's going on? What happened?
Oh my
Where
gosh.
what
Yep.
happened to Vegeta? Who's this? Why is Gohan? This is Gohan? What's going on? So that blew my mind, and we little old Whawkins got on the internet and found like the Dragon Ball Z website, which had all the episode titles and like the sagas and all that stuff. And I sat there for a couple hours reading the episode descriptions after Vegeta's sacrifice, seeing what happened after that. And I'm just like, oh, I want this to happen. And I'm sitting there like counting the days, like, okay, so we're gonna be in this Saiyan saga for this amount of time, and we'll be in the Android saga here. I can't wait. People on the internet are hyping it up. Like, early internet days were fun. That's all I'll say with that.
Sure they
Um,
were.
yes, well, yeah. Until you get into the forums and all that, but
Forums.
that's
That's such a weird word
well,
that the kids of
I
today
know,
might not
right?
understand.
Forums and like, what was the other ones? Like just a bunch of yeah, just forums.
I mean, I guess you
Gosh,
could also say blogs back before
blogs,
that was
yeah,
a thing where it was. I mean, like, I mean, Tumblr was a thing back in the day, but then Tumblr half died after nuking not safe for work content. Yeah, so
yeah.
for everyone that's familiar with the OnlyFans stuff going on, Tumblr can tell you firsthand what a big mistake it is to get rid of not safe for work content on your platform.
Yeah.
But I digress. That's a completely different story. Um, I had a similar issue with, and this is very different, but the fourth season of Digimon, because the fourth season of Digimon would kind of do that. I
Ooh.
mean, a lot of dubbed shows in general kind of did that, where like they didn't have enough of the dubbed material ready, so they would use that practice of going back and repeating things to give them time to dub new episodes and whatnot.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's very different now compared to, like, let's say Funimation or Crunchyroll, where they are dubbing things on a weekly basis to try and, at least to the best of their ability, try and simul release close to when the sub release of an anime happens. Um,
Yeah.
I mean,
And
this
I,
is.
and I, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, just to piggyback off of that with the dub thing. So back in the day, I saw this recording. I think it was Sweet Tea's DreamCon video where she had part of it with Sean Schimmel
Mm-hmm.
on there, and he was talking about how, like, the dubbing process, how different it is between now and then.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the day, it took them like hours just to record maybe 5 minutes of an episode because they had to dub the line, rewind things like on an actual tape,
Yes.
and like, okay, we need to do this take again, rewind all the way back. All right, let's do it again. Whereas today, it's like, okay, do that, and then press of a button. Okay, do that again. Okay, press of a button, do that again. Okay, great, we're done. Like that right there just saved even me just explaining it saved almost like a minute of time just doing it that way. So even the dubbing process
Oh
and
yeah.
uh getting, manga volumes over too. Like for example, MHA, well no, actually no. One Piece just released 97. Yeah, volume 97 here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And in Japan, they're about to release volume 100.
Yes.
So we're only like 3 volumes behind the Japanese release, which
Mm-hmm.
is insane
Oh,
when you
absolutely.
think back in the day.
Well, on top of that too, you have brand new series that just released last year in Shonen Jump in
Mhm.
Japan, already making their way to the States for English serialization physically. And like that in and of itself is mind blowing. Like like for example, it was one thing to see Undead Unluck and Mashal already getting physical prints, but the fact that Sakamoto Days, which is a goated series for the record for anyone that
Yes, it is.
hasn't read Sakamoto Days yet, dear lord, um, the fact that it's already getting physical English releases to me is insane. Like
Yeah.
it started releasing last year in November. Like it has not even been out for a year yet, and it is coming out in the spring of next year in the States. Like that is crazy. Um,
Yeah. And
again, just unheard of back in that time.
yeah, because just to put it into more perspective for all you people out there, um, Dragon Ball is, I mean, I know I keep harping on the Dragon Ball train, but Dragon Ball technically started in the 80s, and we didn't get it here in the States till like almost a decade later.
Right. I think it was somebody commented on my YouTube channel
Hmm.
today, and I think they said, let's see here. Yeah. So Dragon Ball started in 1984. The
Yep.
manga did. So the fact that we didn't get the Dragon Ball Z anime until the late 90s, like that we're talking, almost 15 years worth of time difference
Yeah.
in between what, well, obviously not 15 years in terms of anime to anime, but from when it started in the manga compared to when we got it in the anime form. And again, this was even back then they skipped the original Dragon Ball anime. They went
Yeah.
straight to Z because they thought, and they were right, that at least during at that time people were going to be more interested in Dragon Ball Z than they were going to be with Dragon Ball. And
I
then once
see.
Dragon Ball Z was done, they went back and then they dubbed Dragon Ball. Um, So very, very interesting reversal of things, but it worked
Yeah.
out. I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
think,
because
or sorry, I was gonna say I don't think it would have been as big necessarily in the States had they started out from Dragon Ball.
I would agree with that. Because like when they finally released Dragon Ball, little old me is just like, oh, this must be a prequel to Dragon Ball Z. This will be cool. So like in your mind, you're like, okay, prequels can be a thing because roughly around that time, the Star Wars prequels were a thing. So it's just like, okay, well, a prequel series, great. This will be awesome. I can't wait to see how Goku grew up, and then later on find out, oh, this came before Dragon Ball Z, and then like things start clicking, like, oh wait, Goku found out he's an alien at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, and then like all those like bombshells that started happening in the early parts of Z, you're thinking, oh my gosh, this means so much more. And then other things that happen with like the Super Saiyan transformation, all that other stuff, it starts like clicking more and more in your mind, thinking, wow, this is great, this is awesome. But we're not here to talk about Dragon Ball Z. I could talk about Dragon Ball all day.
I could as well, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's but again, it is a big important part of a lot of 90s kids and 80s for that matter their childhood,
Yeah.
because like one of the three big like kind of purveyors of anime in various formats in like the 90s into the 2000s, like Toonami was one of them. Toonami started back in 1997,
Mhm.
and it's at least its original run went until 2008. And the weekday block, uh, when they actually aired anime and whatnot from Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 Central Standard Time, that went until 2004. So for 7 years, they aired anime during the day on Cartoon Network. They aired Dragon Ball Z. They aired Sailor Moon. Um, G Gundam, I think, was aired during that time as well, and a
Mhm.
few others. But like in from 1997 to 1999, which is the period that a lot of people don't necessarily remember as much because that was the Moltar era of Toonami, and everyone's more
Yeah.
familiar with the Tom eras. But like they had it too, where they aired the Dragon Ball movies, like
Hmm.
during the day, during the week, usually on Fridays, but still, like they were airing the dubbed Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon movies in the late 90s. Like that is like crazy to kind of like to think about that like now. Um I mean, by all means, like as time went on, like we got to see like other anime movies kind of aired more on like the Saturday kind of time slots, especially with Toonami,
Yeah.
and some other channels as well. Mostly like Ghibli, but like we would see other things as well. But it's just crazy to think that that was happening in the late 90s.
Hmm.
But on top of that, you also had Kids WB, which ran like the original Kids WB ran from like 1995 to 2008. You had Four Kids that was dubbing things from 1992 to 2012. Um,
Before kids.
Fox Kids was another big one. I did not grab the dates for that one, but like that was in the 90s as well. Um,
Yeah, I think it was like roughly the same time as Kids WB because it was
yes.
it was all it was always a competition. Like, okay, I gotta watch Pokemon on Kids WB, but then like right after that, gotta watch Digimon. Um, and they were smart sometimes with what they would air during certain times. Like they knew they couldn't compete much with Pokemon, so Fox would throw something in that time slot, and then right after Pokemon was done, okay, time for Digimon or
Or
what
Power
other shows did
Rangers
they have?
too, for that
Power
matter.
Rangers, yeah. And then you'd be like, okay, well now I gotta watch. Now I gotta go back to like Cartoon Network because that might have something playing. There was a lot of channel hopping, and oh my gosh,
Yes.
wait, channel hopping? Oh,
Yeah,
that's
and
that's an
that's
ancient
another
thing
thing
from the
too.
day.
So channel hopping and the Saturday morning cartoon slash anime block. Those are two big things that don't exist like they did back in the
Hmm.
90s and early 2000s. Um, because again, back then, that was when most people had to consume things via TV or
Yeah.
VHS tape, which is another foreign concept nowadays as well. Um, and you, again, like you mentioned, like you had to go back and forth between different channels if you wanted to catch your shows. And if you were lucky and you had a VCR, you could
Yep.
record, certain episodes. I mean, assuming you also had multiple TVs, you could record certain episodes so you could go back and watch it. And I still remember, like, back in the day, like, recording, like, episodes of, like, Power Rangers, Big Bad Beetleborgs, I think Digimon and Pokemon on VHS tapes so I could watch them later on.
Yeah.
Um, and then the Saturday morning cartoon block. This was the kids' like holy grail of content, where all of the cool shows, all of the cool cartoons, and all the cool anime that aired on Saturday mornings. And if you didn't have sports or other activities that were drawing you away from Saturday morning cartoons, you were sitting down, you were watching it with a bowl of cereal, and you were on one of these channels and watching these various program blocks. And
Yeah.
it's so it it's kind of heartbreaking knowing that that's not a thing anymore. That's not saying that there aren't Saturday morning cartoons, because there are. There are still, I would say Nickelodeon is kind of still like the one network that does have like a specific difference in network or in programming for like Saturday mornings to an extent. Um,
Yeah.
but like it's not as big of a thing like it used to be. Um,
No, because like it used to be this event, like every single week, you Monday morning you talk to your friends about the shows that you watch Saturday morning, and then all throughout the week you're just constantly waiting. Okay, okay, it's Friday now. I'm gonna go home, finish all my homework, go to bed early, and then I'm gonna wake up because it would always start early, like 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and you just immediately, like you said, get your bowl of cereal, get your glass of milk or orange juice or whatever, and just sit there in front of the TV, not too close so you don't ruin your eyes, but
mm-hmm,
you just be sitting there just watching these great shows that really did form us at an early age like this. And as much as we want to, talk down about 4Kids about how they, changed certain dubbings and some of their dubbings were a little uh, cringy at best. It's really thanks to them that we got all these series. Like, we got Pokemon, we got Yu-Gi-Oh, we got One Piece from it.
mm-hmm,
As bad as that dub was, but we still got it, and it's still a memory for us, and it's still like something we talk about to this day. No matter how good or bad it was. So it's something that's lost in time. Just waking up in the mornings to watch something like that. Because I mean, right now, we have all these streaming services which are great and it's awesome, but you know, and I guess we could talk about this later on too. It's brought about this culture where we we need everything so quick. Like everything needs to be so quick and fast paced, and we need the answers to our questions right away. Whereas, you know, again, not to use another phrase, but back in our day, like we had to wait the next day to find out what happened. Um,
or wait the
and we
next
would be,
week. Like
or
that
wait
was
the
the
next
thing. Like
week.
we had
Yeah,
to wait a week at a time, like for the new episode of Yu-Gi-Oh to air, for the new
yeah,
episode of Pokemon to air, for the new episode of One Piece, Shaman King, Ultimate Muscle, you name it. Like we had to wait weeks at a
yeah,
time. Like, and that, again, obviously certain people are used to that nowadays. Like that is the
yeah,
standard format for anime and manga releasing. But you do have other platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime on occasion, where
yeah,
they will just dump episodes in batches in one go, and you can just binge it. Like that was not a thing. It wasn't.
It wasn't at all.
And even with like buying VHS tapes at the time or later DVDs, you could binge a little bit, but not to the same extent. Like back in the day, for like a VHS tape, you got 2 to 4 episodes of a series on a single VHS tape. Usually less, honestly. Like it usually leaned more towards 2 or 3 than 4. And then even early iterations of DVDs, again, had a low episode count compared to like the Blu-rays and whatnot that we have now. So it was just a slow drip. Like that's the thing, is that like that is a big part of it. And I think that's why there are, at least, for some of the older generation, we're kind of used to and fine with the weekly wait, whereas a lot more people are like, I want it now. Not saying everyone is, but like we experienced it for decades, so we're used to it.
For anime, and especially for manga, like
manga was worse. Like that's the thing.
Like I didn't fully get into the manga game until Naruto and Bleach were around, but just those waits were just agonizing.
Yes.
Because I think, when did I caught up to Naruto? I caught up to Naruto during Shippuden when they were going to that bridge to meet with Orochimaru. So that's when I caught up with Naruto weekly. And that was painful, because I'm just waiting each week. I'm like, oh my gosh, Orochimaru's back. We haven't seen Sasuke at all. What's going on? What's about to happen? Like, and then especially with Bleach, with things going on there. I mean, to this day, Aizen's still one of my top villains because of his little reveal to Ichigo. Like that blew my mind back in the day. But even just that weekly wait was just so agonizing back then, because we didn't have things like Viz and Shonen Jump apps. I don't know about you, but back then I had to pirate a lot of stuff. I had to like go online to try to find the chapters, and hopefully find a good, decent translation of it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing.
And
like, anime was one thing, manga was completely different. So to shift gears a little bit so we can talk about the manga side of things. Viz Media was formed in 1986 to the present. It didn't really like go full swing into kind of manga production until like 92 from what I saw, because getting into the comic market, like they didn't like new things. So like manga it was not embraced like comics were. And they slowly had to integrate themselves in. Tokyo Pop, a big one from back in the day, formed in 1997, and was a big one until they started just gradually losing their licensing deals and whatnot. A big reason for that was because they partnered with the business known as Borders. And like a lot of people nowadays are not familiar with Borders, but it was a book chain that had a lot of issues. And because Tokyo Pop specifically partnered with Borders at one point is why it went under. And like you only really see Tokyo Pop releasing like Kingdom Hearts manga and a few other things nowadays. But the big one that everyone is familiar with, the US version of Shonen Jump, was a monthly magazine that started in November of 2002. It wasn't until the 2000s that we were getting Shonen Jump, and in a monthly format, and that ran until approximately April 2012, according to my notes here. So, well, and it might have been longer than that, but I have in front of me what my oldest copy of Shonen Jump that I have is the July 2003 version of Monthly Shonen Jump. On the cover of this, monthly shaman or monthly Shonen Jump is Yugi, Luffy, and Kenshin from Rurouni Kenshin. And the thing is, with this version of the magazine, you had a few chapters of like a select handful of series compared to, like the 20 some weekly series that we get nowadays in Shonen Jump. So, like, from this 2003 July copy of Shonen Jump, they were running One Piece, Naruto, Sandland by Akira Toriyama, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Shaman King, Yu Yu Hakusho, and Dragon Ball Z. They had a history on Rurouni Kenshin in this, but they didn't have like an actual chapter. And for just reference for One Piece here, the chapter here is chapter 12, titled Dog, and this was back in the very first Buggy arc back in 2003. And again, so the reason why they even released multiple chapters is because they were releasing it on a monthly basis. So for the people that were reading it strictly from the magazine, they had to wait months at a time to see what the updates were. In comparison, jumping to one of the more modern versions of Shonen Jump, I've got the February 2012 copy with me that once again has One Piece or Luffy on the cover, and this is post time skip Luffy. And this one is really boring in comparison, I will say that. Some of the modern, the more modern-ish Jump, or Shonen Jump covers were kind of boring. It does have a double spread color page of One Piece, though, in the front cover, so that's pretty great. Actually, multiple. Wow, I haven't actually opened this in a while. But, like, even here, like, you still had it where, like, you had multiple chapters. Like, and this one has, once again, One Piece. It had Siren, one of my low-key favorite manga that never got turned into an anime for whatever reason. It had Bleach, it had Naruto, and it had Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. And
what chapters of One Piece are in there? Just for sake of argument.
Yes. So the first chapter in here is chapter 606, Deep Sea Adventure, when they're going to Fishman Island.
Okay, so they at least got like 600 around 600 chapters in that 9-year span.
Yes.
Okay, right.
But like,
that's not terrible.
Again, like it shows this very distinct difference where, again, we had to wait months at a time if we were reading the magazine. We only got a like hand selected amount of series, and some of them weren't even current series in like the current version of Shonen Jump in Japan, compared to nowadays where we've got everything in the magazine for the most part. Like we still don't get certain one shots and whatnot unless it's by like a big author, but we do get every single one of the weekly series. And even then, we didn't get all of those until like a couple years ago. Like the last holdout for us in the States was when Yuna of the Haunted Hot Spring was still running in Weekly Shonen Jump. That one did not come to the stateside whatsoever, because that was on the looter side. Not that Ayakashi Triangle isn't, but I digress.
Well, that one's web only, so we can get away with it on web only,
right? And it's on the Jump Plus app for the people that want to read it by phone. Same with Dan Dan. But that's the thing, is that like we didn't have everything in Jump until a few years ago. Like, honestly, crazy to think about. So it's
and especially like again, like it's just so I can't really put to words how it is. It's like it's mind-boggling how we came from just like barely getting anything to now it's all right there,
Mm-hmm.
and not to promote, but it's only $3 a month for everything,
Mostly
from
everything.
mostly
Like
everything, but
there's
like,
still certain things that are not on there
yeah,
that should be, but for $3 a month, if you're just reading Weekly Shonen Jump alone, you're getting 20 chapters a week on Sundays, and you're getting that for 4 weeks out of a month, if not five. So you're getting 80 to 100 chapters typically in the span of a month if you're just reading the current stuff. If you go into
yeah,
their vault and if you decide to read something for the first time or reread something, there's a lot in there. Like, a lot. And even stuff that you wouldn't expect. I did not expect the fact that Claymore was going to be entirely in the Shonen Jump app, but there it was. I got to read all of Claymore through the Shonen Jump app, and it was fantastic.
yeah.
Um,
But no, people don't understand true pain unless you're on YouTube looking for part 3 of Naruto episode 25, and
yes.
you stumble into the Spanish uh subtitles, and you're like, man, then you finally find part 3 again, but it's it has like 2 minutes from the part before it, so you're like, oh, now I have to fast forward to where it left off. Okay, great, there we
Yes.
go.
Yes.
Like,
So,
you don't understand true pain until you experience mine.
absolutely. And I've mentioned the whole YouTube era of anime on the podcast before. Like, the fact that
Yeah.
and YouTube started out in 2006, or sorry,
Yeah.
2005, but it really wasn't until
Yeah.
like 2008 to 2010 that it was really starting to pick up. And again, that was a time where anime episodes, people would illegally upload them to YouTube, and they would upload them in 3 parts, and you would watch these 3 parts, like episode per episode, on YouTube. And that was how I got into Shippuden. That's
Yep.
how I jumped into Shippuden. I did that through YouTube. I did that for a couple other anime as well, at least until I discovered, some of the other, big pirating streaming sites, which
Mhm.
obviously the big ones were like Kiss Anime and Kiss Manga,
Yep.
back in 2012, which is, it's weird to think that it was that late, but that's kind of like another thing, is that it's not like with the immediate advent of the internet that all of a sudden, oh, we could start uploading manga to the internet. No,
Yeah.
this was a process that took years, because at that time, you would have people that they would have to scan
Hmm.
the books and whatnot in order to get it online. You had
And that
some god awful scans of manga pages that people were just illegally reading online, because we didn't have the sources back then. You didn't get these clean, crisp scans of manga on a weekly basis.
yeah, like, oh my gosh. Cuz that's the thing. So, even with scans today, everything's all set in stone. Oh, they're always going to be on Fridays. No, back then it was like, okay, they might be out on Wednesday. If not, maybe Thursday. And if you're lucky, maybe Friday. There was no set schedule because of all that, because there was such more of a process of trying to scan it in and trying to subtitle it, dub it, whatever, translate it and all that stuff. But it and it's crazy to think that most of this stuff that we're talking about was only like 15 years ago,
Yep. Or
roughly,
less.
or
That's,
less.
again,
Yeah.
crazy thing. And that's the thing, this, in that late 2000s, early 2010s time frame, that was the lawless period of piracy on the internet when it came to anime and manga. And a big part of that was because it was, from Japan rather than from the States. There was a bigger crackdown on movies and whatnot from America than there were on things from Japan. It wasn't until years later where it started becoming more and more of an issue. And
Yeah.
that's why, for the longest time, a lot of people were able to pirate things because it was there. Now, that being said, there are still, you know, a lot of things from the past that scans have not been finished, or potentially never will, just because
Mhm.
of people either losing interest or just the difficulty of finding, older material like that is a
Yeah.
challenge. But like, it's a lot of this stuff was just not available like it is now. And even now, I will say, like, obviously there are a lot of issues. Like especially in Japan, they are cracking down on a lot more of this stuff. So that's, that is why Kiss Anime and Kiss Manga shut down back in 2020. That's why a lot of the different Jump scanlators quit in the last couple of
Yeah.
years, like Manga Stream, and like Gemini's Box when they were doing translations. And that's also why we have seen them like pushing back to a Friday release.
Mhm.
Um, at least in terms of the scan uploading with translations,
Yeah.
because there was more of a crackdown on it earlier when it was. Like, yes, there was a period of time where chapters for Weekly Shonen Jump were scanned and translated and out on Wednesdays, but when they started getting cracked down on, they started changing their tune, or they were forced out.
Yep. They would just, be silent for a week and be like, "All right, we're back. Here's a double upload of everything. Here's the chapters you missed." And yeah, it was a fun time to be around. That's all I'll say.
It
Like,
was. I agree.
it was. Yeah,
Um,
because you're just, and especially with the anime, with the fan translations, or like the fan subtitles. So the one that comes into my mind with fan subtitles is One Piece, with like the scene that comes to mind is Luffy versus Rob Lucci, where he's doing the Gatling at the end. And they always did with the fan subtitles, they always enhanced or changed the font of the attacks and made it like a different color.
mm-hmm.
And with the Gatling, they like made it so that it kept like coming on as Gatling, and like shading and transparency and all that, kind of like it was coming out like a Gatling gun.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a lost art too, with fan subtitles and all that.
At least for anime, because like
At
that
least for
that is
anime,
still a
yeah.
thing that was a big thing for the Kamen Rider and Super Sentai side of
Yeah.
things. Like, that was a big thing where they would make fancy titles and whatnot. Again, depending on who was doing the fan subs. But you are correct. Like, that is by all means a lost art that we don't get anymore, and uh obviously we don't get that with the official things either, and that's unfortunate,
Yeah.
but like, it is what it is. Like, it's
And then there's also, the negative part of that, where people try, and this is mainly on the manga part, and even to this day it's kind of like that, where people try to kind of change the tone, or put their own words or spin on what a character might be actually saying or doing. The thing that comes to mind is a certain page of Kenpachi from Bleach. I'm not gonna say what the fan translators told him to say or said that he said. Just know it involved what pirates would do back in the day in villages, where they would pillage a village and
boy.
do other things. Yeah, he was just
Boy.
like, yeah, he's just like,
Yep.
yeah. I'm like, I, Zaraki Kenpachi's, yeah, he's a badass, but I don't think he's that kind of person. I don't think he wants
Yeah.
to do that to people. Um,
No.
but that kind of happens today too. I mean, I'll read a scanlation from a My Hero chapter, and I'll be like, wait, that this tone is a lot different than what the original, the official
Yeah,
said.
for all the people that say, "Oh man, the scans are so much better than the official translation," I'm just sitting here and I'm like, hell no, they're not."
Yeah,
Like
it's like
there are so many agendas and fan translations in
oh my
comparison.
gosh, there
Uh.
are. Oh,
And
it's like there's
like on top of
agendas and there's edginess, and I'm like, I don't think Zoro's this edgy, but I see where you're going with. But I'm just gonna wait for Sunday to see what they actually say. Thank you.
exactly it is what it is. Um, I do want to say in this, obviously just kind of jumping around and whatnot, but like
Yeah.
it is interesting to see just how far we've come in terms of making as close to like well, as close as possible translations for subbing and translating for like anime and manga,
Hmm.
it, compared to where we were like back in the day. Dubbing and manga translating was synonymous with censorship. Like that was how it was,
Yeah.
because because when they were doing it for like a kid audience and whatnot, they needed to censor it so that it was kid friendly. And it's interesting to see, what has lasted to today. Like it's not like they went back and retranslated early One Piece or Naruto. Like you still have, for example, with Rock Lee, power potion instead of alcohol and drunken fist. And that's also the big reason why we still have Zolo for One Piece
Yeah.
rather than Zoro. And that's also a big part of that is because of copyright and whatnot. But still, like they never switched back for the sake of consistency from the
Yeah.
beginning. And it's both hilarious and awful at the same time, but like
It's like I get it. You want to be consistent with what started with the manga, but I mean, can you try something?
right.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. My brain can just switch it to around. I'm just like, all right, so Zoro, okay, awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, censorship has a big part to deal with it too. I mean, one of the biggest censorships I can remember off the top of my head is it was in Naruto when I won't say who dies, but a certain character in at least in the scan when I read it back in the day, he picked up smoking because the character died. And when the manga volumes came out, the panels that you see of like his hand with a cigarette, it's just a panel of his hand.
Mm.
So like
Mm.
just some censorship there where it's
Yeah.
just kind of it kind of ruins the moment of what happens. But I can understand that too because I get that you don't want to show a 15-year-old pick up smoking.
Yeah,
You know,
anti-smoking is a big thing. I completely
yeah, that
understand it, but yeah,
yeah.
it's
So I get that, but changing a gun into a hammer gun, I mean, or
yeah.
a rice ball into a jelly donut,
Oh my god. Yep.
I'll
Or
never forget
cigarettes and lollipops, or
that.
guns into finger guns.
Yeah.
There was a
Oh man.
lot back in the day with 4 kids. Dear God. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh
but like it's it's so interesting to look at the landscape today in comparison and how many
yeah.
outlets there are for immediate anime or manga access. So like on the anime side of things, you've got Crunchyroll, which has been around since 2006, in
Hmm.
its various iterations. So that's kind of
Yeah.
interesting. That it's been around as long as it has. It obviously it changed though from like the forum side of things to more of, well, the anime hosting that it is today. But it did keep some of that forum aspect with the fact that you can actually comment on episodes as they come out and you can see other people's comments.
Yeah. They
Um,
don't they still have their forums up?
yes, to an
Okay.
extent they
I
do.
thought they did. Yeah.
But obviously that's not, the focus anymore
Right.
because
Yeah.
the whole forum mentality is kind of gone. Like, you still have Reddit, you still have Twitter, and you have Discord, but like dedicated forums are very much a thing of the past compared to what they used
Yeah.
to be. Obviously, you've got Funimation, you've got Verve through Crunchyroll, you've got Netflix, you've got Hulu, you've got HBO Max, you've got Amazon Prime, like, and these are just like the English options that are out there, and there's still some other, more niche options as well, but these are all things that, like, you have access to anime at your fingertips. Like, and yes, you can still see certain things on YouTube as well, but it's not like the days of, episodes in 3 parts. But
Yeah.
you don't really need that when, yes, if you decide not to support the official release, like, there are piracy options out the wazoo as well. And like, even for the manga side of things, you've got the Viz Media app, you've got the Shonen Jump Plus app, you've got various other manga services as well at people's fingertips, whether that's again through Crunchyroll, whether that you're getting that through Comixology, Amazon Prime. There's a new Kodansha service that's out there as well that I haven't
Oh,
delved
did that
into.
start?
Yes, I believe so. I don't think they have it
I need
fully
to get
running
that.
yet in at full capacity, but there are options for people that want to get things simul released and whatnot. And even if you don't do that, um, I yeah, buying physical like video releases of like anime isn't a big thing, but obviously the flip side of things, buying the physical manga, that exploded obviously with like COVID, but like, dear God, the amount of physical manga that you can get nowadays is insane. Like,
Yeah, I can walk into a Books a Million or a Barnes and Noble, and it's so much bigger than when Borders had their stuff, or
yes,
back in the day too, because it would only be like maybe one or two shelves. Now there's a whole section for manga. I mean, even ever since COVID started, I started building up my manga collection again, because at first I only had some Naruto and some Bleach. Now I have all Naruto, all Bleach, all MHA out, almost all One Piece. I've got 7 volumes of Eden Zero, some JJK, the 2 volumes of Undead Unluck, which everyone should be watching right now, or reading,
absolutely,
excuse me.
absolutely.
Um, and it's funny you mentioned something about anime hard copies, because I also have a good anime section with the blue box of Dragon Ball, the orange boxes of Dragon Ball Z, um, all of One Piece, all of Naruto, all of Bleach, Inuyasha, Full Metal Alchemist, like all that stuff. Like I started collecting that stuff because back in the day, that's all I could get. If I wanted to rewatch stuff, I could either try to find it online, or it's even simpler just to pop a DVD in.
Absolutely. And I think the big one for a lot of people was collecting the DVDs for Naruto. Like, that was a
Oh
big
yeah,
thing. Like, like, there are a lot of us elder weebs that have various amounts of the Naruto DVD collections
yep,
in our anime collections. Like,
yeah.
my girlfriend has several box sets of it. So like,
Well,
but
it was so cool because it was an actual box, and
yes,
because it had like art in it, and then some of the Naruto ones had these booklets that had like art inside there, like concept art and all that. So, and even that's kind of a lost, a dying art.
it is.
But yeah,
I mean, like,
ah, I
the
like my
thing
box.
is, a lot of, yeah, there is a digital shift because
Yeah,
it is more profit for the company to present things digitally than it is to physically make things, because then there's less profit margin with it. So like, and that's why, the like the anime side of things, at least in America, has died down compared to the manga side of things, where that has just absolutely exploded.
Yeah.
Because that in and of itself has become a prized thing. And I will discuss that in a later podcast episode. But yeah, it's absolutely crazy to think of just the sheer difference that there is now compared to even 10 years, compared to like, let alone 2 decades, or even 3 decades for that, because
Yeah.
so, like, again, making a bit of a tangent as well, while still being relevant, I looked up, certain companies and whatnot that were involved in, like, anime production and whatnot in, like, the 80s, 90s, and, early 2000s. There are a lot of names here that most people have never heard of at all. Which just goes to show that anyone that wanted to appreciate anime prior to the 90s was in for a rough time, because it was just not present. So, like, you had freaking NBC, which was involved in airing Astro Boy. You had Saban Entertainment that was doing stuff. So, again, for the people familiar with, like, Fox Kids, Power Rangers, Digimon, Saban was, like, part of that. You had U.S. renditions, the Right Stuff International, Animego, Streamline.
Oh, I remember Animego.
Streamline was the one that did the original Akira. Central Park Media, Manga Entertainment, and AD Vision.
Ooh,
And
AD
I do not
Vision.
blame anyone born in the 2000s that has absolutely, like, no idea what almost all of those are, because, like, a lot of these are companies that are, like, dead or on, like, life support at this point in time, like, just because it has become a dominated market by other companies. It's more dominated by very specific companies on the anime side than it is on the manga side. I will say that has been nice, seeing, like, a growth in companies on the manga side compared to anime. While on the anime, just shed a tear as Crunchyroll has been bought by Sony and Funimation to just make a giant.
Hopefully they can both combine again, and we don't have to have two separate streaming services for
And we can
all
just
our
have
anime
Verve
needs.
again. Yeah.
Yes,
I
give me Verve again.
I think that's, it's funny, plugging the last podcast with Tokyo Tron with our anime and manga hot takes, which, if you haven't listened to that podcast and you're listening this far into this podcast and you haven't already, consider giving it a listen. But, like, for both of us, the reason why both of us got Verve in the first place was to watch the dub of Yu Yu Hakusho. And then months later was when Funimation pulled the plug, and you had to watch Yu Yu Hakusho on either Hulu or Funimation in order to watch it. But, like, both of us got into Verve because we saw that advertisement.
It was just so simple. Everything was there.
Mm-hmm.
It was right there. It was so easy. Oh,
yeah.
Not me saying that I have both subscriptions though. Oh.
I have Verve and I have Funimation. I also have a crap ton of other subscriptions as it is, but that's, like, I like supporting official releases when I can, even if I'm not a fan of certain Crunchyroll or Funimation business practices. But, it is what it is. Like, they're still responsible for bringing a lot of anime to the West, so, like, necessary evil.
They're still giving me my dubs, so there's your dub.
Yep, there you go. Like, they're still doing it. Plugging another episode of the podcast where I talked about the state of dubs.
Plugging things.
Oh,
just gonna keep plugging things into this.
I can plug my own damn podcast. That's
exactly.
What this one's for. Oh my god.
But what one thing I wanted to mention. So, we're kind of on the topic of like how easy it is to consume anime and all that. And it's it's led into this new way of just like talking about anime and this new society of anime culture and how we communicate with others and all that. So back in the day, back in the early days of forums, you would go onto a forum discussion, talk about things. It might be like a theory or something. Oh, Toby is Obito confirmed, and somebody's just like, no, that's stupid, he was crushed by a rock. you know You'd have those comments going on, and again, that still happens on like Reddit or Discord or anything. But nowadays, with anime being so easy to consume and manga being so easy to consume, a lot of people are taking in a lot of series. And this also kind of ties into our binge culture that we have, where we're able to watch so much in so little of a time that I think another thing that's getting lost with all that is basic comprehension of a series or events. Now, perfect example of this is MHA right now. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I don't like MHA because of this, and this reason." And you're more than welcome to have your opinion. That's fine.
What?
We all
Having
have
your own
opinions.
opinion? No, you can't have
I
that on
know,
the internet. How
and
dare you? Be part of the hive mind or else.
I'm sorry. You screw the hive minds.
I
Anyways,
know.
but a lot of stuff is just getting either misinterpreted or miscomprehended or anything like that, to the point where part of me feels like a lot of people just kind of need to start slowing down with their consumption. And I guess another good example of this is Bleach lately. So a lot of people now are getting into Bleach. They're either watching it, reading it, whatever. And a lot of people, they will praise themselves on reading 100 chapters in a day. And first of all, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, you can read 100 chapters in a day. I wish I had your skill level. I wish I could do that. I wish I could
I
read 100 chapters in a day.
I'm one of
I think
those
I think
people
the
that can.
see the most I've ever read in a day was 50 chapters.
I have actually reached the cap on Shonen Jump's app before.
Oh,
I have reached that 100 chapter like like hard stop limit before, and I'm like, oh my god, I did. I read this much. Oh my god. But
oh
like,
no.
I get in those moments. But
Yeah.
you are correct. There are other people that like they say that they read 100 chapters, but did they actually read
Yeah.
100 chapters?
Did they retain anything? Because especially with manga, and especially if you're reading like a battle manga, there's a lot of chapters that are just action oriented, and yeah, you could speed through a chapter very quickly. Good example of this, Chainsaw Man last year. There was a few chapters that I basically read in maybe 10 seconds, and I'm like, wait, no, that can't be all the chapter. And I was just like, no, I need to go back and pay attention to what's going on these pages so I can actually comprehend what's going on. But because we're in this binge culture, and we got to consume everything so fast so we can be part of this conversation before the conversation's done, we're kind of losing that comprehension of what's going on in front of us, and we're losing a lot of things in that loss. We're losing that emotional weight that things can have. We're losing these obvious character developments that, if you pay attention throughout the series, is very, I don't want to use the word nuance, but
No,
it's
use it. That
nuanced.
was a big
It's
thing
it's
that Tron and I were about last time.
I know.
People need to understand freaking nuance.
Like, a perfect, I know I keep throwing examples about things and all that, but
No,
another good
do it.
example
Throw
of it,
examples. That's what this is
another good
about.
example, another good example, again, in My Hero Academia, one of my favorite like side characters, background characters, whatever character it is. One of my favorite background characters, side characters, is Mount Lady, because every time she's on screen, there's character development. From the first time she's on there to the latest time she's on there. There's something different about her each time, whether it's the way she talks, acts, walks, whatever. There's something different, and it's something that if you pay attention, you notice every single time she's on screen. Whereas somebody that may have just, quickly read it to catch up and be part of the conversation, they might not have missed that, and then they're out there complaining, "Oh, well, Horikoshi can't write his, female cast well, and his side characters are getting sidelined." It's just like, well, no, there's development right there. Just pay attention. It's literally right there in front of your eyes, right under your nose. Just just pick up the fork, put it on the broccoli, and eat it.
Oh my
Eat your
gosh.
broccoli.
No, I mean, like, to be fair, like, you also have people that complain about certain JJK chapters where it's just like,
Yep.
I don't want to read all this, and it's just like, oh my god, no, just stop complaining, stop. It doesn't have to be meathead stuff the entire time.
It doesn't.
It's okay to read. Jeez, it's not Hunter x Hunter with just a wall of text. It's you can manage it, please. But no, this is going to be a potentially weird example and whatnot that is not anime, but part of the whole binge format was Bojack Horseman.
Hmm.
Like Bojack Horseman was a cartoon that, like, there were certain episodes that had a lot of emotional weight to them, and there were ones where, in all honesty, they deserved space in between, like, watching episodes to really let those emotions and whatnot sink in, and to really comprehend what you just watched, that weren't like the finale episodes or whatnot, like, and you still had episodes afterwards, but like some people would just go right on through rather than like taking that time to let it sink in. And that at least is why, for me, I still prefer consuming anime and manga in a weekly, if not monthly, format, um
Yeah.
rather than just binging it. Not saying that I don't binge things, because I do. Like, sometimes it is nice to be able to binge certain series, especially if you've fallen behind or whatnot. But like, it's nice for the majority of series that I consume to be able to wait and appreciate what I just read, theorize for things to come in the future, and then see what happens next. Because sometimes, like, while it is fulfilling to like be able to immediately see what happens after a cliffhanger or whatnot, on the flip side, for me, I feel much greater emotional highs when I'm able to predict something and it happens.
Same
Like,
here.
or
Yep.
even if things don't happen the way I expected, but they are executed in a good way, that is interesting to me, rather than being just like, binge, 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 binge. All that was fine. Like, there are certain moments where, like, it will have more emotional impact for me, allowing me to take time in between episodes or chapters. Um, and that is lost when you
Yeah.
binge certain things.
And that's the thing. Like, if you take the time to like stop, and just let it soak in you, and have yourself, reflect on what just transpired, what just happened, you can actually dive deeper into a series that way. You know, another good example of this, when I was watching Gintama for the first time last year, I got to which arc was it? It was the Shogun assassination arc, and I got to the end of it, and I'm not going to say what happens at the end of it because that's something that you need to just experience for yourself. But that ending, I just sat there as the ending credits were rolling, I'm like, that just happened. And I see the next episode right there. I'm like, I could start this next arc right now to see what happens next, how they're going to do this, where everything goes now. But I told myself, no, I'm going to stop here because I need to just sit here, reflect, and consume what I just witnessed, what I just watched. And it helps with your retention of the series too, because then you're taking time again to just think about it more, to think about, whatever concepts came about, whatever, if it's a battle thing again, you know, thinking about the battles. If it was a romance thing, you're thinking about the interactions between the characters and all that. You're thinking about all that stuff. You're actually activating your brain and your knowledge and yourself. You're putting yourself into the series again, which is something again that seems lost a little bit with people, how they just consume everything so quickly, because again, it's that fear of missing out. People are afraid that they're going to miss out on something, miss out on a conversation, and miss out on a trend or something, so that way they can get their Twitter numbers up and all that. But at the end of the day, like, consume something that's going to make you feel something, whether that's anger, sadness, happiness, whatever. Like, have it make you feel something and give yourself that time to feel that something. Uh, yeah.
No, I completely agree. Which
Yeah.
I think that it helps to transition into kind of the final topic that I want to discuss,
Hmm.
um, which is really the landscape change when it comes to influence in the
Yeah.
community. So, like, back, well, obviously, like I had mentioned previously, like, YouTube was made back in 2005. Some of the big presences, or at least like the elder weebs of like the anime influencer community, didn't really start until like 2010. It was a much different time compared to now, where obviously like you and myself are considered influencers. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, smaller compared to like some of the bigger ones that are out there. Smaller compared to the people like Sensei or Masked Man, let alone people like Giguk, Nux Taku, the Anime Man, etc., etc. Um, and that was one of those things where it's just like nowadays you have a lot of people that are swayed and or form their opinions around influencers, or entirely decide, oh, I'm going to check out this anime or manga specifically because this person told me to, or I'm not going to because this person told me to, compared to the way it was back in the day where, like, sure, you might have some online people telling you to do something from a forum. You might physically go to a convention and go to panels or whatnot, or meet people and be like, oh, this is interesting. But, like, there was a lot, in my opinion, there was a lot more. There was more of an exploratory nature back then than there is right now. At least
Yeah.
what we have right now feels different, because yes, you do have a bunch of people that are, the people that are like, oh, I want to discover all these new and interesting things and whatnot. um and in comparison with like anime influencers and whatnot, the trends and the algorithm, for the most part, are what determines somebody's actions and opinions, and then the way that they influence people rather than necessarily their own opinions. And like,
Yeah.
obviously certain people, if you're big enough or if you don't care, and like that was part of how your platform was built, you can do whatever you want. But for anyone else that like is trying to get into that influencer space, if you don't follow those trends, and it is super hard to build up from there unless you have something again that's like completely unique to you that just really draws people in.
Right, exactly. And I mean, we joked about it earlier with that whole hive mind mentality, but it, it's there. People get into these hives of, oh, well, I'm part of the Black Clover hive, and no, down with MHA, boo MHA, it's the worst thing ever. We're a top one out of all the jump and all that. And then you have the same thing with some of the MHA hive mind. They're like the same thing, boo Black Clover. It mid nothing can be mid. It can't be a 5 out of 10. Boo, boo. It sucks because it's just that mentality, and part of it, yeah, like you said, it stems from influencers and bigger people. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I've had some. I've been influenced by a bigger name before, where I checked out a series, and guess what? I actually formed my fun fact. I formed my own opinion from that. I didn't agree with the influencer where they were like, "Oh yeah, this thing is awesome." Just like, well, it was all right. It was cool. It wasn't like the best thing ever, but it was cool. And that's the thing with like everybody trying to be the next big thing and all that. We bog ourselves down a lot with like these trends and making sure that we're getting noticed and following these trends and all that. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you're passionate about something and you love something, just take your time with it, have fun with it. And especially with YouTube and even with anime and manga, like we've been talking about, it's not a sprint; it's a marathon. Have fun,
Absolutely.
enjoy it. It's not going to be the end all be all. Life doesn't revolve around. I mean, I have I have a fiance right now. We have and I have a full-time job. Like I have to pay bills. I have to take care of a pet. I have my own family too, and yet I still try to do all this stuff. I try to be all that, and I still try to take the time to smell the roses and everything. Does that mean I miss a trend or two? Yeah, but that's fine. That's okay because life is more about trend. Life is more than trends. It's about living and just enjoy more of what you like. I guess is what my last soapboxy word of the day is.
Oh no, absolutely. I
you know,
think it's I really hate the peak fiction versus mid
yeah, me
mentality.
too.
It's something that
Me too.
I didn't get to cover that in my hot takes video. I would have included that in the section where I was talking about quote unquote best new gen and quote unquote new big three. Like I hate the terms mid and peak fiction because people just throw them around and like the terms have just become dirty and just have lost any impact. Not that I thought mid had any impact in the beginning whatsoever, because the fact that people just say mid and just
Yeah,
don't have the actual argument to back it up. But I mean,
yeah,
even then, being average isn't bad. It's
exactly.
not. And it is completely okay to watch and or read average things and or to seek them out. You don't have to be constantly or only going after things that are considered 10 out of 10 by other people. Because
You don't.
part of that will be like you are either going to develop this superiority complex and or eventually you're going to be disappointed because not everyone is going to have those same feelings and ratings as everyone else. Like you had said earlier, the fact that like you got into a series because of a content creator, but you did not feel the same way as that content creator, that is okay. Like, the content creator did their job of introducing you to a series, and you formed your own opinion on it. And that's not also to say that you can't follow the recommendations of influencers and whatnot. The big thing that's not okay is taking their opinion of the media as law, which
Yep.
is, a big problem. And that is a problem with like every creator out there, and not that they necessarily want that to be the case. A lot of them don't want you to, take their opinion as law. Like, that is the case with Masked Man, that is the case with Super Eye Patch Wolf and other people. Like, you should form your own opinion, but you have a lot of people that will, form into the quote unquote popular opinion based on peer pressure, hive mind mentality stuff. Like, I mentioned Super Eye Patch Wolf. There's a large amount of people out there that have their opinions of Bleach molded because of Super Eye Patch Wolf, rather than necessarily forming their own opinion. And or they might have had their own opinion, but because things were presented this way, it changed their opinion. Like, another person that like comes to mind is Joey the Anime Man, where like he had it where like when he was originally talking about My Hero Academia, when like season 1 was happening, he was like singing its praises and like the characters and whatnot, and then later on a stream he was just like, oh no, it's mid, all the characters suck and blah blah blah, none of the other characters matter. And it's just like, okay, if your opinion legitimately did change and you feel this way, fine, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But for it to be as drastic of a change as it was, is this genuinely your opinion, or was it molded by the trends and the hive mind mentality to change because that is the quote unquote popular opinion?
Exactly. Yeah. Just like it's again like what you said. It's one thing if your opinion changed. That happens to everybody. I mean, I'm rereading Bleach right now, and honestly, my opinion of it is changing. I'm realizing that maybe it was a lot better than Naruto back in the day, but that's just that, you know. It's fine for an opinion to change. That is also okay, you know. But what's not okay, just like what you said, like just straight up going back on your word, being like, "Oh no, I actually think it's mid. You know, I think it's bad." You know, it's like, well, you didn't say that in your video you posted earlier today. Earlier today, you were praising it, and now you're saying that it was just okay. It's just like, are you just doing this for the views, or and then that's when you meet the people that are just like, "Oh no, that's just a character I play online," and it's like, well, why don't you just be you, dude? just just be yourself, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's, again, it's interesting to see all these changes that have occurred over time.
Yeah.
Next year I will be turning that big 30, so by that
Ooh.
time I will have existed for 3 decades. Um,
I'm just gonna crawl into my hole now for existing those 3 decades.
it, fair. I mean, you do you. You know what? It
Yep.
is your choice. I
In
don't I
my
don't
own
want you
little
to be influenced by
my
me.
own little hermit hole. You
Oh,
influenced me. You told me to
yes.
do this.
Oh man. But again, like, it's been so interesting to see these changes and what has happened in this space. And like, while I would not change my upbringing for anything, I would not change growing up in the 90s and experiencing Toonami, Kids WB, for kids, experiencing monthly Shonen Jump, experiencing buying manga from Walden Books or Borders or whatever. Like, it is fantastic that like we do have the accessibility that we have today. um it should not be taken for granted, for sure. Because it wasn't always like this. um but yeah, it's still important to appreciate where we've come from and how far we've come. And I'm interested to see where things go from here. um and I'm interested to see and listen to, my subscribers and anyone that's listened this far, and like I want to know what like other people's experiences have been, like whether they are 2000s kids, 90s kids, 80s kids, whatever. Like I'm interested to see like what people's perspective on it is, because of how just extremely different 3 decades have been.
Yeah, and I mean, not only just that, like mention some of the bad stuff too, because I mean, I know we didn't really touch on it with like a society kind of aspect to it, but a lot of the social aspects of anime and manga now, they're being more accepting. I mean,
Compared
I
to
don't
what it
know how.
was. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like I mean, I was bullied a few times for liking what I liked.
Same here.
And I didn't, growing up, I honestly didn't have a lot of people to talk to about anything. I had maybe a couple friends in elementary school. Nobody really said much in middle school. In high school, I had maybe one or two people I talked to. And nowadays, it's just, we could just go on Twitter and be like, "Oh yeah, I just read the new chapter of Tokyo Revengers. It was some gas, bro." And then some random person will be like, "Oh yeah, it was so great." And there's a connection right there. And we're hearing more and more stories of people being like, "Yeah, I used to watch all that." And like there's just more acceptance of that, which I think is a great thing, in this day. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, well, no, they should have been bullied like that." No. No. If if we're making more things positive and more things, more accepting, then so be it. That's awesome. That's great. I love to see that. So yeah, any stories that are negative or positive about it, share, because I'd love to see. I'd love to have a discussion about it, because yeah, there's so much to go from it.
Absolutely. I mean, like,
Yeah.
to that point, like, I'm going to use like the NFL like as an
Hmm.
example. Like, it would have been unheard of 2 decades ago for somebody in the NFL to be like to proudly say, "Yeah, I'm an anime fan. Yeah, I'm a board game fan." Like, no, absolutely unheard of. Like, they would be shunned. They would be laughed at for being a nerd. Like,
Yeah.
no, it wouldn't be a thing. And yet nowadays, like, and I'm a Green Bay Packers person since I'm a Wisconsinite myself. Like, you had like former players that were anime nerds that went to conventions. You have like people that like they regularly have like board game nights and whatnot, like playing Settlers of Catan and that. And like it's great that we have moved forward. Like, we essentially paid our dues in a way, in that like we we were kind of martyrs in a way,
Yeah.
and nowadays like it's more socially acceptable to like these different things because there are celebrity influencers and whatnot that like it, like the and
Yeah.
like I know there are a lot of people that are like, oh, the normies like My Hero Academia and whatnot. It's just like, shut
Right.
up. It's because of
Yeah.
these quote unquote normies that you're getting more access to anime and manga that you didn't previously have. Like, these people are opening up the doors to more and more options and possibilities. Like, we yes, it absolutely sucked growing up and being bullied for liking things that were considered nerdy and not cool, but it's so great that people can grow up now, and that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
it is great. I do appreciate that, and I think that is one part of the generational divide that I'm glad for the most part people don't have to deal with that in the same way anymore.
Yeah, same here. I mean, now we can play D&D upstairs in the kitchen instead of the basement.
Yes, we are not locked in a room playing Dungeons and
Oh,
Dragons anymore.
finally.
It is cool. It is cool to play D&D with your friends in the kitchen
Yep.
now. It's great.
Yep.
All
Mm.
right. Well, was there anything else then that you wanted to mention before we kind of wrap things up for this podcast?
Um, no, I mean, again, everything's so much easier to come by nowadays, and it's great, you know. And I know we harped a lot about, oh, take your time reading things and don't be a jerk online, but I mean, it's really not that hard to just have a simple conversation, to just take some time to let things soak in of our into our spongy human bodies, because you'll enrich your life a lot more.
You'll understand nuance. For the
Yes,
love
you'll
of God,
understand.
pick up nuance, please. Uh,
Oh,
no, I
man.
agree. And again, if you're someone that you like binging things, that is okay. It's it is up to you what you want to do. All we can do is recommend, you know, what we can with this. If you want to be Nux Taku to watching every anime at 1.5 speed on Netflix, you do you. You do you. Um but sometimes it's nice to, take a pause, take in what you just consumed, let it sit for a bit, and then get into something new. And speaking of getting into things that are new, you know, go out and explore. Like, there are so many anime that are being made nowadays compared to what there was 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. There is so much out there in terms of anime. There's even more out there in terms of manga. Take a day, and just explore. See what is out there, and give something a watch or give something a read that you wouldn't necessarily do before. Like, there is so much out there that people aren't talking about, again, because of the nature of trends and whatnot online. So go out there and see what clicks for you. Like, you might find something that, is, I hate to say it, it might be mid, but you might find something that is quote unquote peak fiction. And even if it is mid, even if it is peak fiction, even if it's something, in between, at that point, you went out and you found something on your own, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I especially hope you enjoyed it, just given, again, just the sheer amount of accessibility that we now have. That is great. There's so much out there, so please, take that time and find something you love. Because that's not something that, you could always do. So enjoy it
Yeah.
while you can.
One of my favorite anime of all time is A Place Further Than the Universe. And I discovered that partially on a whim, partially because Team Four Star were doing their anime FMK series. But if it wasn't for like a mix of trying to expand my horizons, I would not have found such a deep anime like that with probably one of the best messages I've seen in a series, and probably one of the most heartfelt and also kind of tragic moments in a series. So, yes, go out there, experience more, because there's more to life than your favorite, because you might find a new favorite. And also, as the kids say these days, go outside and touch some grass.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No cap there.
Oh. No cap, for
No
real,
cap.
for real.
You're.
You're.
My God.
Oh,
It hurts a little bit to say that, but it
it
is what
did.
that one's for the kids.
Oh, that's
One's for
for
the
you,
kids.
you whippersnappers there.
Oh, you young weebs. You young weebs. All right. Well, Whawkins, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. I'm going to let you have the floor here and give your plug for the brave souls that have ventured an hour and a half into this podcast. The floor is yours.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on for this podcast. It was a lot of fun. Glad we could have gotten together. Again, I've been wanting to get on, just haven't been able to think of a topic, but glad we were able to get together and talk about something great. Um, some plugs. I've got an Instagram, not Instagram. I'm barely on
Who
Instagram.
uses Instagram anymore?
I know, right?
Jeez.
Using those filters. Ugh. Um, I'm on the Twitter machine at Whawkins MW. You can find me there. I usually talk about whatever I want to. I mean, it's my Twitter. I like
Absolutely.
to I like to talk what I want about. I do have a Twitch channel, Worl _D _champion, where you can watch me play some games with some friends. Mainly been playing Sea of Thieves on there. And sometimes I'll have a live podcasty type thing called the Brethren Court, which we talk about One Piece when it's on break. So sometimes it's the anime, the manga, some discussion had about there on there. But the main thing you guys need to look out for is the YouTube channel, Worl D Champion. That's where you can listen to me just spout all of my nonsense about series such as One Piece, My Hero Academia, Red Hood, which I highly recommend people read, and as well as Eden Zero, which I also recommend people to read, as well as some arc reviews of anime I'm revisiting. Currently, I'm revisiting Bleach and Gintama, so those videos are coming out shortly. Um, and then any other videos I decide to do on there as well. So check that out. The only thing I'm missing is just the subscribers before I can start getting monetized, which would be great, which would be awesome. But I'm not in it for the money. I'm just in it to talk to you guys about some fun little series that I really enjoy. And I think that's it. So again, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure having you on, and it was
And
great having again someone that can relate to a
yeah,
similar mentality and experience with all
yeah.
this. So no,
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
I think the nurse I think the nurse here at this nursing home's looking at me funny, so
Oh my
I think
gosh.
it's night I think it's lights out here.
Oh boy. Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, all of Whawkins's links will be in the description down below. If you have not subscribed to him already, please do so. It would be great, especially if you are an hour and 40 minutes into this podcast. And if you are an hour and 40 minutes into this podcast and you are not already subscribed to the Axel Blaze Productions YouTube channel, first of all, you are a champion in and of itself. And two, if you would kindly subscribe to this channel so you can experience more awesome podcasts like this in the future, that would be fantastic. If you liked this video, if you like this podcast episode and you want to see more like it in the future, if you want to see more guests like Whawkins like this in the future, hit that like button. And again, down in the comments down below, tell me what you thought about this episode. Tell me what you think about the generational divide when it comes to kids, adults, and whatnot in anime and manga. Tell me about your experiences and your thoughts and whatnot down in the comments down below. We can get a conversation started. Otherwise, for now, my name is Axel Blaze. Thank you guys for listening, as always. And until next time, get off my anime lawn. Bye bye, everybody. Yeah.